The more I look at Talk Sport, the more I think to myself, maybe it's my cynical nature, that they have a bias against West Ham fans and towards the owners. I think that their reporting is favourable towards the owners and maybe a little bit hedged against and weighted against the West Ham fans themselves. It's not just Jim White, by the way, who both historically and very, very recently damns us with faint praise, then criticises us. Very much sides with the owners. Says that if he sees the owners getting it wrong, he'll hold them to task, but he never does. So I can only assume that he thinks everything they've done in their 10-year ownership of the club has been perfect. But he's very, very quick to criticise the fans. As I say, he will always start off with, nice fans. I like West Ham fans, good working class folk. But, and there's always a but, then he goes on to completely ridicule us, basically. He's very careful with his words, but it's quite clear that he thinks we're completely deluded. We should be grateful for Golden Sullivan coming in, and we should be very, very happy for what we've got. He doesn't know why we're complaining. And then I would take your memory back to Ian Abrahams, aka The Moose, who's a reporter for TalkSport, if you don't know, and he claims to be a West Ham fan. I say claims, that's a bit harsh. I think he probably is a West Ham fan. But when you are in the media and you claim to be a West Ham fan, or you say that you're a West Ham fan, then particularly when you are a journalist who asks questions, which is what he does, I do think you have an obligation to be impartial. But if you're not going to be impartial, you'd expect them to sort of sway to the side of the fan. But when Ian Abrahams interviewed David Gold, he didn't. He was very much on David Gold's side. Very friendly, very familiar, didn't ask any tough questions, and let David Gold off with some pretty bad answers, and a lot of he didn't pin him down, basically. And I don't mean that to be nasty. David Gold is a man in his mid-80s, and I wasn't asking for the Moose to be aggressive with him, as I think you can still ask these questions gently. But even though he is a man in his mid-80s, clearly the faculties are all intact. He knew what he was saying. He knew what he was talking about. But I just think a real journalist at the point when David Gold was answering those questions about the move and about how unsuccessful the move had been, a proper journalist would have said, I'll stop you there because that's not entirely accurate. This is what happened. That didn't happen. Again, it went out there and TalkSport published it and promoted it as a fantastic interview, which it wasn't. And then every day that West Ham have a bit of difficulty, Jim White pops on and criticises us even more. Today, or should I say yesterday, was really the turn of Danny Mills and Mickey Gray, who were on one of the shows on TalkSport, to stick the boot in. And this time they were sticking the boot into Mark Noble. And I'll read the comments in just a second, but one of them was, in particular Danny Mills, I've got to say, he accused Mark Noble of being bored, said he should put his thumbs away. The indication behind that is that he should get off his phone, basically. Stop tweeting, is what he's really saying. And that maybe he just wanted a bit of publicity. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, Mark Noble doesn't want any publicity. Mark Noble does not court publicity, does not want to do interviews, does not like tweeting, doesn't like social media, doesn't like YouTube. Look, we've had a lot of contact with players. We've been doing this, 4 or 5 years, something like that. Some players we've had on for interview, like Obiang and Masuaku and Antonio and Bilic. And we've had a few people on for interview. Some others we've tried to get on for interview and they say they would like to, but the club media department won't let them. Then there are others who just don't want to. And Mark Noble's in that category. He doesn't want to be a social media presence. He doesn't want to be on YouTube. He doesn't want to do this sort of thing. So for Danny Mills to accuse him of basically getting on the Diangana bandwagon because he likes tweeting too much, I think is completely, well, I think it's out of order, yes, but it's inaccurate. It's not the truth. And what worries me more than any of that is it just seems like more and more of this anti-West Ham rhetoric. And I say anti-West Ham, anti-West Ham fan rhetoric. And the other one is Mickey Gray. And for those of you who don't know, Mickey Gray is a staunch Sunderland fan because he's from the area and he played for Sunderland. And I think it's a little bit disappointing from Mickey Gray in particular, because I thought he would understand, because Sunderland have had bad ownership. Sunderland have had periods in their very, very recent history where they've been treated badly. And he seems to forget all of that because it's not Sunderland, it doesn't matter. But with West Ham, no, you should be grateful for what you've got. And this is something, I'm going to read the comments in a minute, and you'll very, very much see that, again, there's a sympathy towards Gold and Sullivan. Later on in this video, we've got Dom, who's going to give us a slightly alternative opinion on the Mark Noble saga. I'm going to be discussing it tonight in a cup of tea. And I like an alternative opinion, by the way. We do welcome it. And so, yeah, have a listen to Dom in a couple of minutes or so. And I don't mind an alternative opinion, but it just seems to be the same opinion all the time from TalkSport. And I do believe even Tony Cascarino the other day was sort of weighing in on the side of the club. And it just... I don't think it's very fair in terms of them being a national broadcaster. Surely there's got to be some form of impartiality from them towards the West Ham fans. But the fact that they sort of continually side with the owners, I think just makes them a bit of a laughing stock amongst West Ham fans, and that surely can't, in terms of their journalistic integrity, that can't be a good look or a good feeling for them. Basically, it says West Ham captain Mark Noble went too far by speaking out about the club's decision to cash in on Grady Diangana. That's according to former Premier League players Danny Mills and Mickey Gray, who both speak on TalkSport. Mickey Gray, so he's one of the presenters on TalkSport, by the way. And Danny Mills regularly features on a show. It goes on to talk about Noble's tweet about how he was critical. And let's just get back down to the comments now. Gray understands why, saying Diangana is a great talent, having watched him a number of times last season, but he believes Noble as club captain perhaps went too far by going public in his criticism. He says Mark Noble is Mr. West Ham. He's been there as a kid, he's come all the way through the ranks, and he's played so many games for the club. He's captain of the club. He's a powerful guy in the dressing room, which is what Dom's going to talk about in just a second. This is what they said on the Sports Bar on TalkSport. He said, this is pretty huge for him to come out and say that, and personally, I think it's a step too far. I can imagine right now at this moment, Karen Brady, David Gold and David Sullivan are absolutely furious. Really, really furious. Well, who cares? Who cares? Well, why does he care? Why does Mickey Gray care that Gold, Brady and Sullivan are furious? Why does he not care that we're furious, that the fans are furious? Far more than 3 people. It goes on to discuss that it was endorsed by Declan Rice and Sebastian Haller and Jack Wilshere and so on and so forth. He said only Mark Noble will know why he's done this, but maybe he's annoyed as everybody else. He's a West Ham supporter who wants to see these young players break through, show the West Ham supporters how much talent they've got, and maybe take him to that next level instead of buying a player for 30 or 40 million. They've got the talent at their disposal right now, and he's a talent, by the way. I've seen him play on numerous occasions. So why let him go when I'm sure he'd have been happy to go out on loan for another season? Wait his turn, and then when his opportunity comes, you've got a proper player who wants to play for West Ham. The West Ham fans would love to see that right now. That's why the club captain of West Ham is frustrated. Basically goes on to say, but he shouldn't have said anything. Well, number one, there's a massive contradiction. And number two, that's not correct. Mickey Gray's saying, I've seen him play loads of times, so he should go back out on loan for another season, then come back in, and that's why West Ham fans are disappointed. It's not why we're disappointed. He was ready to go now. Oven ready, let's say. He was ready to play in our first team now. He'd done the loan. We wanted to see him play. We've got wingers that we've spent that sort of money on. They don't work. This is a guy we thought could work. We want to see him in our front line this season, playing on the left wing. That's why we're annoyed. I don't know why he would... I just think it's weird that he wouldn't do his... That he wouldn't look into it a little bit more than that. Anyway, but the real one was, he said, meanwhile, Mills branded Noble's comments as unnecessary, urging the club captain to put his thumbs away. Well, that's just insulting. Saying players shouldn't comment on club business decisions in a public forum. The former defender added, is he bored? Look, he said, is he sat at home thinking, I'll send this out without really thinking about the consequence? Basically saying he's sat at home, he's bored, and he wants to get involved on social media. That's not Mark Noble. Mark Noble hadn't tweeted for ages. So for him to do this showed how annoyed he was. It's not bad, but it's not great either. And as club captain of that club, I think you should probably expect a little bit more than that. Players move, it's simple. We know that. 80 million is a lot of money for a young kid who's cost him absolutely nothing. It's lottery time for Brady, Gold and Sullivan. An opportunity to claw back a lot of money that they've wasted. What? I mean, Again, your finger's so far off the pulse. It's unbelievable. I think it's a little bit of advice for players to start questioning what the club are doing. Sometimes when you get a good fee for a player, you just take it. And if it comes back to bite you in the backside, then so be it. We've seen it with Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne at Chelsea. Well, let's be absolutely fair. What was happening at Chelsea was very different, because you could put Lukaku in there as well. When they sold those players, they arguably had world-class... Arguably, they brought in other world-class players. This is not what's happening at West Ham. West Ham are selling the family silver, and we can't actually replace him. The players that we've got to play on the left wing next season, arguably, are not going to have the impact that Grady and Garner would have had. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not like you sell Kevin De Bruyne and you go and bring in another world-class attacking midfielder. That's just not the case. It's not like you sell Mo Salah but buy a Brazilian winger who's in the World Cup squad and stuff like that. This is not what's happening here. Let Lukaku go, but that's all right. We'll bring in Diego Costa. This is not what's happening at West Ham. And he basically says, so it's a good fee for a young player, isn't it? I don't think Mark Noble should come out against the club. Everybody's savvy enough to know that it's going to be picked up and everybody's going to see that. Well, Mark Noble knew it was going to see that. That's why he did it. To say he's disappointed is one thing. To say he's angry, is that necessary? Not really. You're bringing problems on yourself. You're under enough pressure and scrutiny. Why pile more on yourself? If it's anyway, go. There's more and more. I think TalkSport need to wind their necks in. I really do. I think maybe somebody might want to point out to them that their journalism is completely biased. Now I know. I am aware that they've got a job to do. I'm aware they want people to phone up and all the rest of it. And I understand that they're probably Arsenal fans to turn around and say, actually, they're biased against us. And they'd have a point. I think they are. I think they are biased against Arsenal. I mean, they have a good laugh at Arsenal's expense. Absolutely. But come on. I think a lot of the rest of the media are waking up and they realise what's going on at West Ham. But I can't help but think that TalkSport basically managed to get themselves wrapped around Golden Sullivan's little finger. And as Canning Townend did the old puppet, David Sullivan, and the puppet was Jim White. Seems that way, doesn't it? Anyway, slightly different opinion. Hear him out. Is Dom.
Do you know, I'm quite surprised that West Ham didn't gain a lot of fans over lockdown because, as I understand it, they took the soap operas off air for a while. And West Ham is just a continuous soap opera that never seems to end. And with the Grady Dean Garner situation and what's gone on with social media and Mark Noble, it just keeps on rolling at seemingly the worst possible time. And I just want to kind of talk about the Mark Noble thing. And I'm struggling to do so because I feel like I'm going to potentially annoy a few people. Because first and foremost, let me just say, I think we all agree with what Mark Noble said. What he thinks, rather. It's whether it's best advised to put that out there on social media, and the backing he got from a lot of the squad. And a lot of people look at that as a positive thing, but it comes back to a point that I've always kind of been slightly concerned about with Mark Noble, and that is how much influence he has over the players. At times in the past where we seem to have just down tools, I always wonder, has Mark Noble played a role in that? We heard that when Manuel Pellegrini, shortly before he left, Mark Noble picked up the ball in training and questioned his ways in front of the players. Perhaps that's what a captain should do, I don't know. But I would see it as undermining the manager when your job is to basically just make sure that everyone is carrying out instructions. Because ultimately you can't blame a manager for failing if the players don't follow what they want them to do. Now, like I say, I think the general consensus is the board should go. We all agree with that. I'm not sure it's very wise on the eve of a new season, a difficult season where we've not recruited any new players really, apart from Thomas Souček. I just think at this point, perhaps we need the captain to be sucking it up and putting on a brave face and bringing the rest of the squad with him, making them believe that it doesn't matter. We don't need Grady Dean Garner. Now, as for that transfer, I'm as gutted as anyone. I was really looking forward to seeing him in the team next season. In fact, one of the key reasons I was quite looking forward to next season was that it was looking as if we were going to have to show a bit of faith in the youngsters. But it happened, and we either fester on it, let our heads drop as a squad, and potentially are set for a very poor season, or we have to kind of see it as a backs against the wall job. Everything is against us. Let's come out fighting. The friendly, the Betway Cup against Bournemouth, that wasn't, well, must have been one of the worst 5-3 games I've ever seen. David Martin didn't have the best of games, did he? Ben Johnson didn't have the best of games. It was worrying, the body language in that match. And perhaps it's just because it's very fresh. It's right after the Ngannou transfer, and hopefully they'll sort themselves out. But it is a concern a week before the season kicks off in probably one of the only matches that on paper we've got a chance of winning from our opening run of fixtures. We need to get off to a good start, and it's hard to see that happening at the moment. But just to put a positive spin on things, if from the outset I was given the option of sell Grady Diangana and improve our fullback situation, get 2 really solid fullbacks, or keep Diangana and don't do anything with the back line, then I would have chosen to sell Grady Diangana. So the question is now, are we going to go out and really improve our back line? We need to. I mean, okay, it's a friendly, the Betway Cup, but just time and time again, we just see teams able to just walk through our defence that have seemingly hours to find a shot and goal, and then when we attack, we just can't find a way through. Manager after manager, squad after squad, we have the same problems. I don't know why. But one of the few plus points out of that game, Josh Cullen. I thought he played very well. Had a couple of assists, one beautiful assist. And I thought he looked like the only player who had their head up and wanted to fight. And that's something I want to see in the team next season. That's an attitude I want to see. And I think we're going to need it.